Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 10th talk in our International Philosophy Talk series held by the Department of Philosophy at Marmara University here in Istanbul. Today, we are honored to have Dr. Abdullah Özkan from Onsekiz Mart, Çanakkale University with us. I would like to start by introducing him first. Dr. Abdullah Özkan graduated from Marmara University Faculty of Theology in 2005. And following his graduation, he worked as a teacher at Ardahan Religious Vocational High School for nearly 2 years. In 2008, he went to the United States with a Turkish government scholarship and completed his master's degree in Islamic Studies in 2010 and his PhD in Islamic Studies in 2016 at the University of California, Los Angeles. After returning to Turkey, he worked in Üsküdar District Directorate, National Education for 9 months. And in 2017, he was appointed as a research assistant to Çanakkale Onsekiz Mart University, Faculty of Theology, Department of Islamic Philosophy. He continues his studies as an assistant professor at the same university, and he has also been teaching here at the philosophy department at Marmara University. Among his most recent publications, I'd like to mention 2 articles. One of them is The Similarities Between al-Ghazali's Science of the Hereafter and Rasā'il Ikhwān al-Safā, and also a Libyan novel in Metropolis in the Country of Men. He's also participating in a project, which I will say the name in Turkish, Kendi Kaynaklarına Göre İbadilik, Temel Metinler Üzerinden Disiplinler Arası İnceleme. Today's talk is entitled Non-Human Animals versus Human Animal, 22nd Epistle of Rasā'il Ikhwān al-Safā. I'd like to also remind you that this term marks the 40th year of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences of Marmara University. So we are happy also to celebrate this through these talks as well, including today's talk. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Abdullah Özkan, and thank you again for participating in our Philosophy Talk series.
Thank you for having me and giving me this opportunity to speak. I heard that before me, you invited some prominent philosophers in this philosophy talks. I don't claim to be prominent in anything, but I finished my PhD. So I worked on Ghazali and Ikhwān al-Safā. Mr. Yilmaz said to me, I could speak about al-Ghazali, but I usually talk about Ghazali. So this time I decided to speak something different, on something different. And there was an interesting epistle in the Rasā'il Ikhwān al-Safā, which is their 22nd epistle, and it is about animals. And I was also reading about animals, modern debates, and I saw some kind of similarities between these modern debates and this epistle. And I was trying to write an article about it. And the story is also a funny story, so I decided to talk about it. And basically, in this talk, first, I am going to talk about, my title. The title is kind of a combination of 2 different notions. The first part is kind of terminology is a modern terminology, because Ikhwān al-Safā do not talk about non-human animals and human animals. They talk about man and animals. They see man and animal as 2 different things. But I was also reading Peter Singer, Animal Liberation, his book. and I kind of combine these two things. I try to combine these two things in this article, and basically today I am going to talk about these two things. And maybe I should start with defining my terminology first. What non-human animal means, and why people talk about animals as non-human animals, and about human beings as human animal. So my first question is, what is non-human animal? And it is, non-human animal is something, an animal organism other than a human being. It's a living being, but not human, not fungus, not plant, and it's also moves voluntarily, something like mammals, fish, birds, insects. And when modern animal debates or animal right movements, when they are talking about animals, they use non-human animal. Why do we use non-human animal instead of animal? What is the significance of this terminology? Because according to animal right movements, human being is part of the animal kingdom, and the usage human and animal infers inherent discrimination, such as humans and animals are two different things, and therefore they cannot be considered equally. The terminology of human animal and non-human animal highlights the common ground, which is being alive in animal nature, so that at least there is something to be considered equally between these two things. When we talk about animal rights movements, we also kind of see a special term, which is called speciesism. And speciesism, according to Peter Singer, is the general ideology of most human beings. So almost all of us are speciesists. And speciesism means that belief in that members of one species are more important than members of other species. This belief justifies unethical behaviors towards members of other species, and it results in discrimination and violence without feeling guilty. Speciesism, according to Peter Singer, comparable with racism and sexism. It is kind of discrimination. Racists give greater weight to their interest, the interest of their own race, and sexists favor the interest of their own sex. So we, as a species, human species, give greater weight to the interest of our own species and ignore the interest of other species. Most of the human beings take an active part in sacrifice of the most important interest of members of other species, which is being life. Life is the most important interest of a living being, in order to promote the most trivial interest of our own species. For example, eating meat or animal products, hunting for fun, or research facilities for cosmetics, etc. These are trivial interests for us, but in order to achieve these interests, we ignore the interest of other species, and we don't feel any guilt killing them. And the other species also, their most important interest is the preservation of their lives. So They must protect their lives. They have interest also. We must consider them equally in that respect. They are living beings, animals, and we are living beings. We are animals also. So we have some common ground in that respect. What is wrong with speciesism? If I am a speciesist, why should I be? Should I feel guilt, or why should I feel embarrassed? I didn't know anything about speciesism until I read Peter Singer, so I didn't feel any guilt or embarrassment. But now I know about two human beings. One is more intelligent, more powerful, more beautiful than the other. Are they equal? They are not, but they are not equal in reality, but we should consider them equally. We don't say that the less intelligent, the less powerful, the less beautiful one has less rights than the other ones. If possessing a higher degree of intelligence does not entitle one human being to use another for his or her own ends, how can it entitle humans to exploit non-humans for the same purpose? This is the question Peter Singer asks. If possessing a higher degree of intelligence does not entitle one human to use another for his or her own ends, how can it entitle humans to exploit non-humans for the same purpose? We are all speciesists, most of us, maybe. But why we are speciesist? Speciesism is ingrained in our thought, especially in the Western world, because of our religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, according to Singer. And it has roots in ancient Greek philosophy. According to religion, monotheistic religions, our Western religions, God created man in his own image and wanted them to multiply in the earth and subdue it. The universe is now man's dominion with the right bestowed in him by God. So man can use the universe whichever way he wants. According to Greek philosophy, maybe we can see two different schools. One is Pythagoreans, who did not eat any meat product, lived vegetarian lives, but the dominant school of ancient Greek philosophy is Plato and Aristotle. And Aristotle thinks that and says that plants exist for the sake of animals, animals for the sake of man. Since nature makes nothing purposeless or in vain, it is undeniably true that she has made all animals for the sake of man. So everything that exists in nature created or exists for the sake of man, according to Aristotle. And according to religion, universe is man's dominion. Man can do whatever he wants in the universe. So why should we care about our being speciesist? Because we are morally responsible, and according to Singer, if you agree that racism and sexism is wrong, you must agree that speciesism is wrong also, because the mechanism is the same. Somebody, some groups, some people, or some beings has some features which makes them advantageous to other groups, and they use these advantageous features to control other groups. And according to Singer, we are doing the same thing when we're in our relation with the animals. And we are morally responsible with respect to racism and sexism, and we are morally more responsible with respect to speciesism, because in this respect, the unadvantageous group has one weakness, which is they cannot speak for themselves. Blacks can speak for themselves. Women can speak for themselves. We can speak for them as well, but animals cannot speak for themselves. The members of the exploited group cannot themselves make an organized protest against the treatment they receive. We have to speak up on behalf of those who cannot speak for themselves, says Peter Singer. This is the speciesism, and why we use non-human animals and human animal. Maybe this is kind of like general context of the my beginning, let's say. Now I am going to move to the 22nd epistle of the Ikhwān al-Safā. In this 22nd epistle, animals do speak for themselves, because the epistle was written in the form of a fable. Animals can speak for themselves in this epistle. This epistle is the 22nd epistle, is the longest and most entertaining epistle of the Ikhwān al-Safā. Who is Ikhwān al-Safā, or who are Ikhwān al-Safā? Nobody knows actually who are they, or who is he or she. Maybe there is one guy who wrote the Rasā'il, or there is a group of people who wrote the Rasā'il, but they are the writers of their epistles. We know them because of their epistles. They do not give any information about their identity in the epistles, but we know them as the Ikhwān al-Safā because of their epistles. We know that they are, or if they are one man, they lived in the city of Basra in modern-day Iraq. In the 9th or 10th century, between 840 and 960, we think that the Rasā'il was written between these two times, 840 and 960. It is a secret group. They do not give any information about their identity. And in modern-day scholarship, there isn't a definitive information about their identity. Basically, they are the writers of these epistles. The epistles are about everything. The epistles are, or the collection of epistles is an encyclopedic work of 52 epistles. Every epistle can be read independently, but they are connected somehow. They are the branches of tree of knowledge. We can read them independently, but they are connected because they represent the whole body of knowledge the Ikhwān received during their time in Iraq. The epistles are divided into 4 parts based on the nature of sciences. The first part is mathematical and logical sciences. The second part is natural philosophy and sciences. The third part is sciences of the soul and intellect. And the fourth part is theological sciences. Their practical sciences also is under theological sciences. Our epistle, 22nd epistle, is the 8th epistle from the Natural Sciences division, which is the second section of the Rasā'il. Title of its translation is The Case of the Animals versus Man Before the King of the Jinn. The original title is not like this. I think the translators, Len Goodman and Richard McGregor, prefer this title because it is catchier than the original. Original Arabic title is في كيفية تكوين الحيوانات وأوصافها, on the quality of the creation of animals and their descriptions. So, Ikhwān, actually, their intention is not to charge man against human beings about their oppression and cruelty against animals, but their I think real intention is to describe how animals came into being and their description. Basically, the work is a kind of animal encyclopedia, or they call it bestiary, the description of animals. But they present their descriptions with a catchy story, which is the oppression of man and their cruelty and violence and wrongdoings against animals. The structure of the epistle is like this. The epistle can be divided into 3 parts. The beginning, which is the introduction, the trial section, and the final section. In the introduction, the Ikhwān clearly they are clearly speciesist in the introduction. They use the same arguments religion and philosophy used based on the Quran, this time not Judaism or Christianity like in Peter Singer, and Aristotle. They base their ideas, they derive their ideas, their speciesist ideas from the Quran and from the philosophy of Aristotle and Galen. They say there is a hierarchy in existence which springs from a single cause or source. Introduction. In the introduction, Ikhwān says that there is a hierarchy in existence. The lowest plants verge into the highest mineral germs. The highest plants into lowest animals. The highest animals verge with the lowest rank of human beings. The highest rank of humans with the lowest of the angels. But we should not understand these words as like they are endorsing some kind of evolution. I think Ikhwān is not, they are not evolutionists, but there is a connection between living beings, but this connection is not like a process. God gave them their form in a similar vein. The human form is the forms of other animals. The human form is to the forms of other animals as head is to the body. Man's soul is the leader, as it were, and theirs the led. So man's soul led the other soul. Plants and animals were created before human beings, which means that they were created for the sake of man. Man's survival depends on what was created before him. If something is created before something else, which means that the first thing created for the sake of others. According to Ikhwān, we cannot argue with this idea, notion. plants existed before animals because they are created for the sake of animals, and animals created before man because they are created for the sake of man. The human form is God's wise regent on earth. So man is the representative of God in this earth. The human has his own distinction over plants and animals, his reason and discernment. In the trial section of the epistle, the animals is going to argue that they have also reason and discernment, but Ikhwān, at the introduction of their epistle, clearly states that man's reason and discernment is better than the animals. The heads of human beings point upward to the heavens. The heads of plants, according to Ikhwān, which are their roots, point downward. The heads of the animals lay in between horizontally. So we look up, plants look down, and animals are between. Humans stand erect in the straight way. There is no other animal or plants like in our forms. But during the trial section, Ikhwān kind of starts to speak kind of differently. In the introduction section, they were speciesists. They prefer man over other living beings or over other beings, living or non-living. But in the trial section, they seem to be favoring animals. The trial section begins with the story of creation. God created human beings. They multiplied and spread across the earth. At first, they were living a vegetarian life. They clothed themselves with tree leaves. Then they enslaved cattle as cows, sheep, and camels, and beasts like horses, asses, and mules. They started to hunt wild animals. And animals started to escape from them because of their oppression. They were living happily in a garden and they were eating plant-based meals. Then they did something prohibited, and they came down to earth and they started to enslave other animals. But some animals escaped from them and they went to an island. The island was situated in close to equator, and this island is ruled by a jinn, and the island belonged to the jinn, and the king of the jinn, Bivaras the Wise, known as Merdan, resides in an island near the equator with his subjects. And there are animals in the island free from human oppression. But one day, a storm brings a seafaring ship to the shores of this island. The people of the ship liked the island and decided to settle there. They think that the animals of the island are their runaway slaves, and they decided to capture them. And animals learned their plan and decided to go to the king and complain about the injustice and wrongs of mankind. They said, the animals said that human beings, without any right, captured them, butchered them, use them in their fields, hunt them for fun, make their skins use their skins as clothes, and they do all this without any right. But humans claim before the king of the jinn that they have every right, and these animals are their slaves, and they escaped from their authority. So now they can take them back because they are their properties. The king asked about their proof and evidence. Humans answer that they have both traditional religious arguments and rational proof. Similar to Singer, according to man, religion and philosophy both justify humans' authority over animals and plants. The Ikhwān also, what Peter Singer describes as man's dominion, the Ikhwān also uses the same arguments. They have both religious arguments and rational proofs, which is philosophy. For their religious arguments, human beings cite verses from the Quran, and they read something like this. Cattle did he create for you, whence you have warmth and many uses. You eat of them and find them fair when you bring them home to rest or drive them out to pasture. They carry your heavy burdens for you to lands you might reach, only with great trouble to your souls. Another verse, you are born upon them and on ships. Of the cattle, some are for burden and some for meat. They continue, horses, mules, and asses for riding and for splendor, and much that you know not. Praise be God who said that you may be seated on their backs and consider your Lord's favor as you ride. This is the religious arguments of human beings, and these are the verses from the Quran. But animals argue that human beings misunderstood these verses, and they say that there is nothing in these passages, these human sites, to support their claim that they are masters and we are their slaves. For example, they say, God subjected them to you. Humans say that God subjected them to you, but animals cites another verse. He subjected the sun and moon, the wind and clouds. And they ask, right now, if God uses the same words for the sun and the moon and the wind and the clouds, does that mean that the sun, the moon, the winds and clouds, they are also your slaves? And the king of the jinn accepts their counter argument and their interpretation. They think he thinks that, I don't know, the jinn thinks that animals are right in that respect. The words, the citations, human cited, does not justify their claims. The philosophical argument is based on the perfection of human form, his erect stature, upright carriage, keen senses, his power of discrimination and discernment, and superior intellect. Animals deny all these claims and bring counter-arguments. For example, for the form, animals say that God created every animal and gave it a form based on its need in order to make it fit to its environment. So if the camel, its form is kind of uneven, but its form is perfect for his needs, for its needs and its environment. That's why God created the camel that way, and it is form is perfect because God created camel that way. And we cannot say that God created something which is not perfect according to animals. For keen senses, animals claim that humans have senses, but some animals have better senses than the human beings. For example, the eagle can see much better than human beings, and the rabbits can hear much better than the human beings. The cheetahs, for example, can smell better than human beings. Also dogs, for example. When it comes to their discrimination, their power of discrimination and discernment or superior intellect, animals claim that they have also discernment and superior intellect because they can create complex societies and order, which happens in the case of bees and ants, which means that they have also discernment and superior intellect. And discernment and superior intellect are not unique to human beings. And the Ikhwān seems to accept this claim. At the beginning of the Epistle, they were saying that man is better than the other beings because of his discernment and superior intellect, but now they agree with the animals here. So discernment and superior intellect are not unique to human beings. Animals also have some discernment. They can, for example, they can recognize their enemies. They can recognize their friends. For example, the sheep can recognize its baby among 100 baby sheep's baby. But human beings cannot recognize their babies, and their babies cannot recognize their mothers and fathers until they are like 2 months old, 3 months old. But the other animals, they can recognize their mothers and fathers immediately after birth. According to Ikhwān, this is kind of some examples of discernment and intellect. There are many arguments in the epistle. Human beings brings their arguments, and every time the animals bring their counter arguments, and the king of the jinn cannot reach any judgment at the end of the day. And this trial goes several days, and everybody goes their quarters, and they try to bring some. Next day, they will try to bring some arguments and counter arguments. For example, men, when they go to their quarters, they talk about their winning strategies. Some of them says that let's bribe the judge and let's give them some money, and maybe he can favor us over animals. The jinn also says, some jinns also says, let's free these animals because it seems that man treats them unjustly and violently and oppress them. Let's give some money to man and buy these animals and free them. But some other jinn says that without animals, human cannot survive. So they will not accept this offer. Some jinn says, for example, let's free them without knowing, without telling anything to animals. Let's make them escape. And the next day we can say to humans, they escaped without our knowledge. And the other jinn says, in this case, we will have to fight with human beings, and they are stronger than us. And we escape to this island from their oppression. And we don't want to start this war again. So at the end, their schemes or plans does not work, and the next day also comes. And every day they present new arguments and counter arguments. And one of the arguments human brings is that God sent messengers and prophets to humans, and that means that God preferred man over animals, because human is the vice regent of God on earth, and God preferred man over animals. But animals say that, deny their argument, saying that God sent you messengers and prophets because you are so wicked and you needed these religions and revelations. But we animals do not need them, since they are innate, since we are innately better than you. We don't do bad things innately. We kill each other sometimes, but we do these things according to our needs. We don't kill, for example, lion. The lion does not kill every gazelle. He kills one gazelle when he gets hungry. But humans are not like that. That is why you needed religion, and God sent religion to you. So you are not better than us. We are better than you. If God is sending you messengers and prophets, you don't have discernment and superior intellect. You have negligence and ignorance because you don't know how to conduct your own business, and God sends you messengers and prophets. And the king of jinn also finds these counter arguments convincing again. And humans claim that they have sciences and traditions, which animals do not have. But animals also claim that every time you bring an argument, you always say the better part of the, you always talk about good things, but you do not talk about bad things you have. For example, animals claim that you have sciences, but you also have ignorances and negligences. You have traditions, good traditions, but you have also bad traditions. For example, there are wars between you and religious wars. You have many sects, and every sect fights with each other. But we animals are united and one thing, and we do not fight with each other. We are one thing. Our religion is kind of, we don't need messengers and prophets because we know God and we worship God, and we are better than you. You are not our masters and we are not your slaves. Every time the argument goes on like this, and the Ikhwān, while they are doing these arguments, they describe animals. For example, when they are talking about discernment and superior intellect, they also describe bees and ants, for example. And when they are talking about discernment and superior intellect, they also describe sheep, and they describe birds, parrots, every kind of animals. Not every kind of animal, but as many as they can do. Another claim human beings bring is that they use animals, which means that they are their masters and the animals are their slaves. They use animals, they eat their meat, they use their skin. But animals claim that without animals, man would not be able to survive. And according to animals, this means that animals are better than man. For example, animal says that when you wear silk, you feel proud, but the silk you are wearing in order to feel proud is the spittle of silkworm, and that tiny little insects produces something you are running after, and which means that the spittle of silkworm is very valuable to you, and which means that silkworm is actually better than you, and you shouldn't be proud that you are wearing silk. The silkworm should be proud that you are wearing silk. Their arguments is like that. There are many arguments in the epistle, counter arguments, but every time animal says something, humans say something, the animals bring something that counters their argument. And it seems that the trial is not going to end indefinitely, but it ends abruptly, suddenly, and I don't see the logic of the judgment. In the final section, a man from Hijaz, which is a place, the city of Mecca and Medina situated. A man from Hijaz says that humans have prophets, their devices, sages, poets, imams, sages, and paragons of goodness and virtue, saints and their seconds, ascetics, pure and righteous figures, persons of piety, insight, understanding, awareness, and vision, who are like the angels on high. They quest after the highest goods, yearn after their Lord, turn to him in all things, and ever hearken to him. They look to him, contemplate his greatness and splendor, trust him in all things, beseech him alone, seek him alone, and hope in him alone, since their care is his dread. When the Hijazi man says this, the king of the jinn and the delegates of animals agree that, O humans, now at last you have come to the truth. You have spoken well, answered right. For what you claim now is something indeed to take pride in. The deeds you cite are indeed worth performing. The lives and characters of these saintly persons, their manners and thoughts, the studies in which they are versed, are indeed worth vying for. I mean, the humans were repeating the same thing from the beginning of the epistle, but I see maybe the Ikhwān decided that how are we going to end this epistle? Let's say something and let's animals accept these things, and they accepted. Now, the judgment of the jinni is this. When the Hijazi man says these things and the animals agree with his claims, the king order is this. His order was that all of the animals were to be subject to the commands and prohibitions of the humans and remain subject to them until a new age had dawned. But then they would have a new fate. At this, one of the king's attendants rose and announced, "You have heard, O animals, the explanation of these humans, and you have conceded that their arguments are sound. You have acknowledged that you are satisfied. So retire and return under God's protection and safe conduct." And the epistle ended with the superiority of human beings over animals. And this is the epistle. And the end of my presentation, maybe. Now, if you have any questions or comments.
Thank you, Dr. Özkan, for the presentation. I think the jinn got really tired.
Yeah, I think so.
And all of a sudden he makes that judgment.
Yeah, there are a lot of noises, and they were living in peace until that human beings came. Maybe he wanted to get rid of them immediately. Take your animals and go away.
Yeah, leave me in peace.
Yeah, leave me in peace.
Yes, Karim Hocam.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Hocam. I really enjoyed the presentation. I mean, I'm interested in this from different perspectives, let's say. So I have a few things to say. Some of them are it's a combination of comments and questions, and it's not very organized. I'll just speak freely, if I may. So the first thing is it might be very useful, I mean, maybe in the way you might develop the paper. And this is a point that is based on a distinction that Professor Naif Cook makes when talking about the ecological crisis. I can maybe separately later give you maybe references or something.
Yeah.
So it might be helpful to distinguish between the epistemological and the ethical dimension of the relationship between humans and non-human animals. So on the epistemological level, it seems that we are incapable of, just because of the fact, the eyes that we have, these senses that we have, the way our minds are. I mean, we cannot see the world but through human eyes because we are humans. We cannot see the world from the perspective of a bat or a bee or something like this. But this doesn't mean, at least not necessarily, that we should not treat them equally. Or okay, so this is just one thing when talking about or thinking about the speciesism and about and I think it might refer at the end to, might relate to the ambiguous end of the epistle. So this is just one thing I think it might be helpful for introducing this distinction. Maybe there is something in the arguments and how they're being made in the epistle that might enlighten that. The other thing is, it seems to me that, I don't know the reason why the Ikhwān al-Safā, they're presenting it, or what's the point of this epistle, but I mean, it seems more like a conversation between humans and humans. Right? It is, in many ways, it is anthropomorphic, right? So we are attributing to animals all the, and maybe maybe this is a very instinctual thing for humans to attribute human emotions, human intentions, human reason to other entities. But I mean, it would be very interesting for me to think about what kind of lesson would the Ikhwān al-Safā want the reader to get out of reading this epistle. And if I were to, you know, guess here, I would say that because of the way it ended, which is, yes, you are right that the Hijazi man, all he did in some sense is maybe mentioned earlier ideas or ideas that were already mentioned in the human arguments. However, it seems that he did it in a different way. It seems that all he did is he pointed to what I get out of it. I mean, is like this focus on the importance of action, of that humans can be very wise, they can be very respectful, they can be in connection with the creation, they can worship Allah by choice, not only by default like the animals do. And this maybe makes them superior in this sense. And I think the point here, I mean, one way to understand the point is that going back to the very nice analogy you made with the lion, right? So the lion, the animals recognize that the lion is perfectly fine when the lion is hungry and he hunts a gazelle and eats it. This is part of being an animal. In the animal kingdom, this is perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. The problem is that humans, they store the gazelle, they kill as many gazelles as they can, they have fridges and they store them, and sometimes they rot and they don't even eat them, and we eat more than we can, and when we kill, maybe when the lion also kills the gazelle, he's killing the gazelle for his survival, but he's also doing it maybe with some kind of respect for the gazelle. It's not that he takes himself to be superior and this is why he just wants to dominate the gazelle or something like this. Mm-hmm. So to go back to the epistemic ethical distinction with regard to how the epistle ended, I mean, it might be that the ethical way of treating animals lies in how we kill the animal, and how we consume the animal, and how we treat them in our, let's say, stables. And it's not that humans should not eat meat, humans should not ride horses or things like this. The question is, are we eating meat? Are we using their skin? Are we consuming animal products with the right appreciation of those creatures as the creation of Allah, the same creator that created us? You know, that kind of maybe distinction. It seems to me that maybe the Hijazi man was, or is something implicit in the Hijazi man. Sorry, I went on for too long, but this is how I kind of like to maybe read these. I mean, it might be completely not based on the text, but I felt it is there in your presentation, and I just maybe want to share this and would love to hear your thoughts if you have any.
Yeah, actually, the Ikhwān, when they talk about animals, I think they are talking about animals. They want some kind of kind treatment. We are dominant being in the universe as human beings, because at the beginning they already said that there is a hierarchy and we are at the top of this hierarchy. When they let animals to speak, I think they are not trying to cause some kind of vegetarian movement. They might know about vegetarianism because at the time there are some vegetarians, and one of the most influential philosophers on the thought of Ikhwān is Pythagoras, and he was a vegetarian philosopher, and their orders were vegetarian. And the Ikhwān was known as a Pythagorean movement, but they were also Muslims, and they were living in a Muslim society. Some of them might not be Muslims, but religion, the scripture allows human beings to eat meat, and it is halal for us to use animals if we kill them accordingly. But their intention with this epistle is not just telling a story about animals and, you know, about the jinn and their struggle between man with man. They also try to give detailed information about the structures of animals differently. They describe many animals in this epistle, and they give, you know, kind of their descriptions, and with this they are trying to prove that God created everything in a perfect form, in total. And when we read this epistle, we don't see just the trial. We also see that everything created by God according to some plan, and this plan is visible in the natural world. If we look at the natural world according to Ikhwān, we see that there is a creator behind this working world, and they are also emanationist, but this emanation happens according to God's creation. God let them emanation to happen. God creates emanation. So their world is not kind of like a determined world. God can enter this world every time he wants. He can send prophets and messengers, and this is kind of God's intervention in the world. The ending is not surprising to me, actually, because, as you said, Mr. Sadiq, human beings are free agents in this world. They can be best of the angels, and they can be worse than animals. This is why the human beings are, you know, are the best animal. When we can choose to be bad, and we can choose to be good, and when we can choose to be good, we kind of leave these worldly bodies and become angels, and in some respects we become God, and we return to God because of our choices. And Hijazi men, his examples are, you know, sages, holy men, learned men with many sciences. He is talking about these free agents, but they chose to be good men, not bad men. And animals cannot do that. Animals innately good or bad, or we cannot talk about their goodness or badness because they are not free agents. Human beings can be good or can be bad because we are free agent. This is why we are at the top. We are special creation of God, unlike animals, I think. But there are many things in the epistle. If you have time, You can read it. It is very entertaining, and many things can be written about this epistle.
Thank you. Inshallah, I will.
Erdal Hocam.
Hocam, Abdullah Hocam, thank you. It was very enjoyable for me too. By the way, my voice is okay for you guys?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sorry for my voices. Yes, really, I am very interested in this this topic because actually I haven't already heard this you know text, but I'm very interested in the phenomenology of animal life. You know, in epistemological area. There are some philosophers, of course, they try to talk about this issue. I mean, the animal life. But I think in this text and in other speech and texts, we speak for I mean, actually, animal doesn't speak for themselves. Instead of animals, we make them speak for themselves.
Yep.
Right. Like in this epistle, actually, actually, you know, no animal is aware of this talk, this you know, speech. We make them actually talk for themselves. I mean, yes, like Kant claim, it is not possible for us to go outside this human frame, human structure. I think we have problem with our conception of human being. I think in phenomenological sense, phenomenologists discuss this point. You know, we consider human being as animal rational animal, especially by referring to you know, rationality. We consider us, you know, more powerful over the other you know, entities, beings, especially by referring to this criteria. We classify beings like, you know, animal, plants, and also human beings. But I think it's for us, for our case, it is not possible for go outside this frame. We humanize animal. We humanize, for instance, gods. For God, for instance, God is like, you know, more powerful human being, more, you know, intelligent human being. But here, you know, for instance, when we say a lion killed a gazelle, it is a part of animal. But for us, actually, we consider it is a part of animal. But for animal, we don't know. Okay, we don't know actually animal. You know, for how animals sense, feel when any of them kill, you know, other animal.
Yep.
I think it is not possible for human case to go outside this frame. But I think if we want to leave, you know, this world without destroying this world, I think we should solve our problem with our you know, spacious. Phenomenologists talk about this issue. They say we have a idea about human being, and we put this idea at the center of being. By referring to this idea, we classify beings and we impose this frame to every, every kind of beings, gods, animal, plants, etc. So how can we minimize this, humanized conception of the other world? I think this is a good case. This is a maybe, there is some ambiguous in this epistle, but I think it gives us an example to think of the other things differently, I think.
Yeah.
So I'm very curious about this epistle. I hope it's translated into English, right?
Yeah, it's
And also
translated, and
Turkish.
yeah, it's translated also into Turkish. There are some mistakes in Turkish translation,
Okay.
and English translation is better because Len Goodman, they are doing comparative philosophy, and the footnotes are richer than the text itself.
Very great.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Let
my.
me,
Yes, please.
Let me ask you something. I don't know if I got your point correctly, but Peter Singer maybe
Yes.
would say something like this. I cannot communicate with animals, right?
Yes.
But I cannot communicate with, some African men also, because they speak a different language. And there is nothing that I can communicate with them except, when they speak, their speech seems to me like mumbo jumbo. And what is the difference, for example, between a lamb and an African man, to me, according to phenomenology? For example, if I see a lamb at the butcher's hand, and the butcher's hand is like holding a knife, and the lamb is crying for help. And if I see an African man at the butcher's hand, and the butcher's hand is holding a knife, and he's crying for help, but I don't understand both of them. So how do I know that the African man, should I help him or let him be?
This is a big question. I don't know, but for phenomenologists, of course, there is a big difference between these two cases, because yes, maybe we use different language, but we use, according to, for instance, Heidegger, we use language, we use word, we use, sentence, etc. That's the big difference for phenomenologists between, these two cases. But of course, we don't know their language actually.
I can learn the language of African man, but I cannot learn the language of the lamb, right?
Yes.
That is, I
Yes.
that is the difference.
Yes, you're right. But phenomenologists, especially by referring to language, they say we create a word, not of course physical words, by using our language. Language open a world in which we live. But animals, are anchored to their worlds. They cannot, open a world in which they live. Yes, especially by referring to the language, they argue, like this. But your example is very good example. Maybe we can solve these things together. I'm really very curious with this episode. Yeah, this is my comment, but I have a question. Please help me to understand these things. You said Ikhwān al-Safā benefit from, of course, Islamic background, Quran, Aristotle, and also Galen. Yes, Galen, we know. But here there is a problem for me. Aristotle make a difference between even, human being. For Aristotle, feminine and masculine gods, they are psychologically different and they are ethically different, etc. But I think Ibn Safa's conception of human being and, animal, they are so close to Stoic perspective. Stoic perspective says we are a part of nature. Animals are part of nature. In one sense, we are, very close. That's why maybe, we consider animals in a very different way, etc. So I think I'm not sure. Did they benefit from Stoic perspective, Stoic, background? I think instead of Aristotelian perspective, Stoic perspective helped them to, create this conception, I think.
Yeah. I think Ikhwān do not classify themselves belonging to one school of thought, and they usually think of themselves as universalist, and every kind of knowledge they accept. It is the Quran, the Bible, Hebrew Bible, Pythagoreans, Plato, Aristotle, Stoics, Galens. They connect everything, and it is not possible to say that if one is Aristotelian. It is not also possible to say that. Of course, they got some influences from Stoics, and it is visible also in this epistle. And Len Goodman provides really informative footnotes at the end, at the end of every pages, and he compares Ikhwān in these footnotes with Stoics, Aristotle, Galen, Plato, and I think, yeah, you are right. They got some influences from Stoics. They consider themselves as part of nature, and their treatment of animals is not like that. Is not like Aristotelian. They are not cruel as much as Aristotle was. There are some kindness towards animals, and of course, at the end, they allowed mankind to eat and use animals, but at least they some kind of inside the epistle, in the middle part of the epistle, they make us think about animals. For example, they say that animals suffer, and we should treat them kindly, even though we have to kill them in order to feed ourselves. If we are using their milks or skins, we must allow the babies to eat their milks. We should not take all the milks to, for ourselves. In that respect, Ikhwān is like way ahead of their time. There are many similar ideas, the animals expressed in this epistle, and we can see these expressions in the modern animal rights movements. For example, Peter Singer, he bases his arguments on the idea that animals also, like we humans, suffer, and we should try to erase these sufferings from the world. It is, for our own goods and also for animals' good. And I don't know. Did I answer your question?
Yes. Thank you so much.
Okay. While there are no other questions that I can see, I will take that opportunity and ask a question. I have actually 3 questions / comments. First of all, about Erdal Hoca's comment that we humanize the animals. I mean, like the most obvious evidence for this lies in our documentaries. I mean, the way those documentaries are narrated, it's totally, I mean, the human talking, the baby gets alone or is very, when it's talking about some newly born animal learning how to walk, or a bird that learns how to fly, the adjectives, the descriptions that are used, these are all human adjectives. They talk about courage, they talk about fear, none of which we have evidence for from the animal perspective. So even, I mean, we always give these examples, but maybe the lion sometimes does kind of, what's the word? Maybe the lion is not hungry and he eats another gazelle just for the fun of it. We don't know. I mean, in order to know this, in order to have an opinion on this, there must be a study done which tracks lions consistently, see how much meat they consume over a certain period of time, and then take an average, and then see if they all follow that average, which is a very extensive study. I don't know if such studies are done, but yeah, we don't even know if these animals are merely killing other animals when they're hungry. Maybe not. So that's interesting to note.
Is this your first question?
Yes, but I mean, first comment. But
Yeah,
yes,
first
I'd like
comment,
to hear your. I'd like to hear your opinion on this.
I think we should make some distinction while we humanize animals. For example, right now I am reading a book, but if I talk about a lion as if the lion is reading a book, I think I am humanizing the animal. But if somebody attacks me, you can see that I am afraid from my face, right? When I attacked an animal, I think I can see that the animal is afraid. So, am I humanizing the animal? If
No,
I
you
say,
may be right. Maybe there are some features like fear, expression of fear. I don't know. Maybe the expression of fear is genuine.
also, I like animal documentaries a lot.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Let's think about elephants, for example. When a member of the group dies, the
Yeah.
others cry for that member. So if I say that, and the elephant is crying for his friend, am I humanizing the elephant?
Yes.
Clearly, I can see that.
I don't know.
Clearly, I can see that the elephants, you know, have emotions also, like us, because maybe because we share some common grounds with other animals, and especially with the mammals. You know, the apes, for example, the chimpanzees, they have complex social structures. And if I say that they have some complex social structures, am I humanizing the chimpanzees? I don't know what, but if I say that the chimpanzee, a chimpanzee right now is writing a novel about me, for example. If I say something like this, I think I am humanizing the chimpanzee, but
I agree. There are certain behaviors that are more inclined to be classified under humanizing, maybe, and others maybe not. I don't know what that borderline or what that distinction, how that distinction can be articulated.
Yeah, where is the borderline? I think that's the question.
Yes, can I jump into this discussion, please?
Yes.
So, sorry, Sinem Hocam. Yes, it is so interesting point. Let me share one point, Kantian point with you. It is very very important for me to see this point. In his Prolegomena, Kant says, of course, Kant criticizing the limit of reason, he line a border between phenomenal world and noumenal world. When we talk about noumenal words, we talk about it by using our tool, which works in phenomenal world. But there is no another option actually, because in this word, in this frame, these two work. But I don't know. He says this tool or this kind of speech, whether this kind of speech work in the noumenal world. He says, for instance, we say God has a reason, but we add this ability to God actually. Why? Because we make a comparison between us and God. We analogically use this let's say concept. Yes, we observe some relation between phenomenal world and noumenal world, and we say by referring to similar relation between phenomenal world, the things in the phenomenal world, and then the analogically says yes, that has a reason. And then by referring to, some relation in the phenomenal world, and we say, yes, this, we use it analogically, and then say yes, God is like us, and God has a will. But actually, for us, for our perspective, we assign these qualities, this feature to God. But actually, we don't know what God, is in itself. For our perspective, for our, approach, God seems us like this. The same thing for animal, I think. Yes, that's why I said it is not possible for us to go outside. Actually, Kant said, Kant emphasized this point. We cannot go outside this framework because we are anchored in spatio-temporal relation and categories. That's why, we think like this: God, animals, plants, etc. But actually, we don't know what they are in themselves. That's why all speech humanize, I think, all God, animals, and other things, because there is no another way to talk about these things for human being. Yes, this is very, interesting point. I found it in Kant's philosophy, and it helped me to understand, this point. I mean, our humanized action. Maybe Abdullah Özkan, you are against this Kantian explanation, but I'm very close to this.
No, I am not against. No, I am not against it. Yeah, we talk about things, and this is our speech, and we have to talk about things based on our speech. What else we can do?
Yes.
Nothing. Yeah, I think Kant is right.
Yeah, actually, this is also, I'll just mention this and move on to my second question, actually second question. But it's also very widely mentioned fact in philosophy of mind. This most important property of consciousness is its subjective character. And no one organism actually can know what it's like to be another organism. Very famously argued for Thomas Nagel in his article, "What is it like to be a bat?" You also mentioned bats earlier. I have no conception of what it might be like to be a bat and to perceive my surrounding through that echo, whatever system, like the sound waves reflecting back, etc. And even when the species get a little closer to each other in terms of perhaps perceptual skills and whatnot, one might say, I have a better idea maybe to know what it's like to be a member of another species. But still, there is like it seems there's an unbridgeable gap. And you might even take that further and say it, across the members within the same species. But I won't dwell on that point. It just seems that it was also relevant to the Kantian point made. The second thing was actually about a little different from this, going back to Singer and what you said when you mentioned his arguments for speciesism, or whatever.
Yes,
the sexism, racism, there seems to be an analogy. Singer seems to think there's an analogy, but isn't it like perhaps an over analogy? Because I can see perhaps the analogy that can be drawn between racism and sexism, but what do you think about do you really think speciesism is analogous to the racism and sexism, etc.? Because it seems to me it's of a different kind. With racism and sexism, you're kind of on a common ground. You have human as the subject.
Yeah.
But with speciesism, I was just a little skeptical of that analogy, and I was wondering if you agreed with that analogy.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I agree with you. It seems to me that the speciesism does not seem to me similar to the racism and sexism, because you know, I can talk with a black man or a woman, and he or she can tell me what the problem is, but the different species, you know, the communication, and Peter Singer tries to answer these kind of questions in the book, but I am not convinced myself completely. Otherwise, you know, I would be eating. I would stop eating meat at the moment. But I lost my appetite a little bit. It seems hard to me when it comes to chicken at the moment, but I still eat lamb. And yeah, I think I see your point, and let's stop eating animals. Then after that, some people come and say, let's stop eating plants, because they are also living beings. If Peter Singer says that we can live, we can sustain our lives based on plants. So we should stop eating meat. Let's imagine in the future, we can sustain our lives based on minerals, and we don't have to eat plants anymore. And should we take pills all the time? I would ask this question to Peter Singer, but he is aware of this problem, but he skips it. He doesn't answer this question, at least in this book. I didn't read his other books yet. Maybe he addressed these problems in his other works, but at the moment I don't have any information, any knowledge about it.
Okay, thank you. Oh yeah, the third, if there are no other questions, I'll hold back. It's not a terribly important point. Any other questions?
I want to add something. Peter Singer, I think the point is because of the nervous system. That's why the plants and animals are very different, create different things. So I think, by the way, I have read his book. I think he doesn't skip this problem, but especially this sensibility. I mean, animals are sensible. That's why, because they have nervous system. So that's why they are very similar to us for capability to feel pain. I just want to add this as an information. And thanks for this.
Yeah, he maybe it's actually maybe he does not skip this problem, but his argument does not seem to me convincing. His borderline is neurobiological similarities between man and animal, and we can eat, for example, plants according to his borderline. But if somebody comes after Peter Singer and lowers the borderline, then what happens? If somebody comes and says plants also have interests of their own because they want to live. They don't want me to eat them, for example. He addressed, he was talking about somebody who wrote a book about plants, but maybe I didn't give much attention to that point, or I don't know, I skipped it myself, I don't know.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions, so maybe I can make that last comment. This is probably relevant to Karim Hoca's first comment, the distinction between epistemological and ethical issues. I think it's similar to that point, because in the epistle, what the discussion is about maybe a little bit ambiguous. I mean, is it the superiority of humans over animals, or is it the humans can be superior to animals. That doesn't mean, of course, animals will be slaves to humans. So those are separate issues. But putting that aside, focusing on perhaps the epistemological or maybe the metaphysical aspect of this, the concept of superiority, why should it even, the only way I can see that superiority would matter is, well, I can see two ways it can matter. One, if the less superior is being mistreated, therefore the problem is essentially of an ethical nature. Yep. Second is the superior has this need to express their being, the nature of their being, as superior. So it's kind of a self-acknowledgement of some kind, which doesn't seem to be the case here, as far as I can see. So perhaps the essence of this disagreement or this discussion or whatever is, nevertheless, it might be of an ethical source. It could be an ethical problem which leads to all of this, maybe.
Yep, I think the Ikhwān, their main purpose with this epistle is not ethical. They are trying to show their readers the whole of creation, but incidentally they address some ethical questions. For example, are we treating them, as God intended us to treat them, or are we treating them violently and overcrossing our boundaries in order to exploit them? These questions are asked in the epistle, but the main purpose is not ethical, I think.
Okay.
It is mostly ontological.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's more like maybe showing humankind its place, not to get within the whole creation. don't think that you're somewhere above the rest. The whole thing should be taken as a unity.
Yeah, I think they are saying that you can be at the top if you behave accordingly. If you kill animals, unjustly, you cannot be at the top. In that case, you are being worse than the other animals, because if the lion does not kill for fun, and if you are killing for fun, you are worse than the lion. In that case, you are not at the top. You are below the lion, and I think they are giving this message to their readers: behave accordingly, and mind your business, and do not cross your borders, your lines, and be good. I think they are saying to mankind, if you be good, you are the best. If you are bad, you are worse than the animals. You are like at the bottom.
Thank you. Erdem Hocam, yes, I think your hands.
Thank you, Sinem Hocam. Yeah, I have another question, Abdullah Hocam, about their terminology. Yes, I think they have a very special idea about this issue. But if they don't have any appropriate terminology in order to express this special idea, I think we can misunderstand their, real intention. Let me give you an example from my side. For instance, in epistemology, because of some, similar reason, they don't consider human being as an animal, rational animal. Instead of this terminology, they create their own terminology. For instance, when they talk about human being, in Heidegger case, he preferred to use Dasein, because Dasein refers to Da. We are becoming there. There is very, central. There actually includes nature, environment, tradition, history, geography, and all these things constitute actually my essence, my existence. That's why actually we see clearly, the intention behind this phenomenological approach. So is there any new terminology in the philosophy of this thinker, Ikhwān al-Safā? For instance, I think they use non-human animal in addition to this kind of term. Are there new, terminology here, or
No.
they use, ongoing terminology in order to express their idea?
There isn't any new terminology in the Ikhwān, I guess, and they don't use, for example, non-human animals or human animal kind of terminology, because of course they are using, for example, they say human beings are hayvan natık mümeyyiz, which means animal with discernment and reason. But when they use animal, they don't mean animal. they mean a living being. Animals and man are two distinct things, and they are separate from each other. Man does not belong to animal kingdom, according to Ikhwān. This is my understanding. I don't know. But in modern biology, we are part of the animal kingdom. We are mammals. But in Ikhwān's case, we are not part of the animal kingdom. Animal kingdom is something different. You know, there is some taxonomy inside animal kingdom, and human being is not part of the taxonomy. Humans are different things. They are not animals, actually. They are living beings. They have animas, you know, living beings. And when Ikhwān uses animal for human beings, they mean that they are living beings. They are not animals. In this case, their terminology is old. They are basing this terminology maybe based on Aristotle. They inherited Aristotelian, you know, layers of soul: vegetative soul, animal soul, and human soul. And human beings are humans because they have human souls, but they are not part of the animal kingdom, according to Ikhwān. This is my understanding. Some other people might understand differently, but clearly, I think they think man as an independent living being. Man is not part of some other class. Yeah, did I answer your question?
Thank you, Abdullah. Thank you.
Can I just very quickly make a comment? Assuming my battery doesn't die, or because I don't have electricity. So I just as a comment, since it's been discussed and it's turning in my head. So so I can see that it is easier to connect or identify or understand the perspective of other humans that are, say, in positions of being oppressed or discriminated against, in the case of racism or other kind of discriminations or injustices. And it's been noted that there seems to be, I think it was Sinam Hoja and with the also Abdullah Hoja, that the case is different with animals, and maybe it's different with also plants. I mean, I guess animals is the easier case, the harder case. So I want to say that I mean, I want to maybe push the side of Singer, and I want to say that yes, it is harder, but there is something in common with animals. And this is the, let's say, us as living with beings with certain kinds of sensory perception. And while I cannot imagine when I maybe interact or supervise or deal with a dog or a sheep, I do not think of things like the sheep's mother-in-law, whereas I can think of the mother-in-law of someone, from a different nation that, I don't speak their language or something like this. I can still, I mean, maybe we can abstract, maybe here phenomenology is helpful, right? Maybe phenomenologic in our own experience, we can abstract or detach from what we take to be as part of our like taken for granted experiences and experience ourselves as just say a breathing entity. And maybe on that level, we can connect with an animal and realize that, yes, if we take ourselves to be superior to the animal because we are smarter or whatever, we will be doing something similar to what we would be doing in the case of racism. I think this is Singer's point, right? Is that if you take a feature of you because you score better on that feature, you take yourself to be superior.
Yeah.
I think the analogy might work, but I mean, I disagree with Singer that the implication is necessarily that you should not necessarily consume animals. I mean, again, I think my point, in my opinion, is really it's much more about how you do something than whether you do it or not. So the problem is not that we eat meat as much as the problem is how we raise the cattle and how we kill the cattle and how much we eat meat. And this is really the problem, much more than the mere fact that humans consume meat. I mean, Singer wants to make a different point, right? He wants to say that it is unethical to actually consume any meat, I guess, or animal products. But I think I can agree with Singer and the analogy, but disagree on the conclusion. But I see that there is something about the analogy. And I mean, if you speak with someone, maybe a farmer who raises cattle or someone who's been living with a dog or with a cat for years, I mean, they have a different opinion. I mean, they think they can communicate. I mean, they have a very strong, humans can build very strong emotional connections with animals, and some maybe prefer their dogs over their neighbors or maybe their parents. I mean, depending on the parent, I guess. But yeah, I don't think it, I mean, because I see the point that there is like a qualitative difference, it seems, right? But I think the difference is really in terms of what we take for granted as part of our experience. And there is a much higher level of commonality between us and a human stranger that speaks a different language. But this doesn't mean, I mean, that the commonality we have with animals is not maybe strong enough to justify like a claim of maybe discrimination. Maybe discrimination is a bit strong, but maybe, I mean, we can be oppressive of animals. I mean, if we think that we are really superior and they are really different, then maybe the claim of domination or oppression of animals doesn't hold. But I think we can. I mean, we can treat. I'm babbling here, but yeah, there's something there. I'm not being able to like pinpoint it. Yeah.
Yeah, there is another angle in Singer's argument. He's a utilitarian, and I think he doesn't talk about rights, actually. He's a utilitarian because he talks about greater goods, and he thinks that eating animals is not just unethical, but it is also dangerous for us, for humans. Because if we continue eating animals like we eat animals today, we are going to kill the planet, because meat production, animal husbandry is the biggest cause of climate change. And this is not good for us. And this is also not good for other animals as well. And in that case, Peter Singer, I mean, talking about greater good for him is also ethics, but he also has some pragmatic projections in his arguments, I think. Fatma, what do you say?
I think yes, because of the carbon footprint, right?
Yeah.
It is not good for ecology. So yeah, I agree with.
for Singer, it is not, you know, we feel connected with the animals. It is not just that, it is also, for example, at the beginning of the book, he, you know, when he talks about animals with an old lady, the old lady says, "Oh, what kind of dog do you have?" She asks, and he says, "I don't have a dog, you know. I am not interested in animals in that way," he says. "I am interested in animals according to my pragmatic utilitarian outlook." Peter Singer, I think, says at the beginning of the book. Eating animals is not, it is not just emotional thing, it is also a dangerous thing for Peter Singer. We are going to kill ourselves. We are going to see the end of days in our lives because we eat so much meat product and animal product, and the planet is going to die because of our love for the meat.
I mean, I agree with him. I just don't think that it follows that we should not eat meat. It follows that we should not eat as much meat, right?
Yeah.
So, and it doesn't, you know, it also follows that, for example, in the case of the chicken, let's say, of how we raise them, or of, I mean, the cattle, if I'm not mistaken, the main problem is the methane, like the gas that cows, and this is like one of the main gases that somehow hold the heat into the earth. But yeah, no, I mean, yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else would like to make a comment? Okay, well, it's 8:10 already. I should attend to my cat now after all this talk.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Abdullah Özkan.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much
No
for having me and listening me with patience. And it's good to see you as well, face to face.
Yes,
Yeah.
that too. Yeah,
I
it's,
hope
yeah,
I will see you next time.
yes.
Inshallah.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Good evening.